Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first podcast with Leap. Really excited to welcome you to this Women in Tech Inspiring Future Generations podcast. We have an incredible panel with you today. Just before I enter into the panel, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why this topic is so important. So if we look at some stats, the top AI-dominated companies, men are sitting at the helm of leadership. Apple, Amazon, Tencent, Microsoft, Google, and Alibaba have all been reaping profit for many years, but yet not a single profit can be attributed under the leadership of a woman. A PwC survey states that 78% of the students surveyed in the UK universities cannot name a woman in tech. A survey by Jobs for Her states that for the entry-level position, job opportunity for women is only 30%. 10% in the managerial level and reduces to only 1% in the leadership level. This means that the prospect of leadership, as the prospect of leadership increases, the opportunity for women decreases. Another dire statistic, a PwC report states that only 23% of people working in STEM roles in the UK are female, while only 5% of leadership positions in technology are held by women. This is a really serious issue, and today we've brought together three incredible women who have careers in tech. I suppose plus myself, that's four, and my background is slightly different. I'm not heavily embedded in building tech, but I'm more involved in investing in tech. So you can count me as a woman in tech. One of the things that I noted was that this started really early on from girls who were less likely to study STEM really early on, females being less likely to start a career in STEM, and perhaps the biggest issue of all is the shortage of female role models as a major barrier for females. And that's why we're hoping that these podcasts will help to shift that dialogue. I'm really excited to welcome Lina Khalil, investor, co-founder, and chief commercial officer of Mum's World, who's currently in Dubai. Lina, I'd love you to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started to develop your early career in tech.
Hi, lovely to be here today. Being in tech wasn't something that I considered being part of. Being in tech was something that I did as part of who I was. So I was very strong in STEM growing up, and then I was an electrical engineer. Graduating, I immediately joined the technology investment bank. At the time, it wasn't cool. It wasn't the thing. But I was very lucky that I joined an industry as it grew and it was exploding, and I was very lucky to work on over 20 transactions in the first 3 years of my life, working on some of the bigger names today in technology. So I was working with the San Francisco-based investment bank, moving into Europe, helping technology firms get funding so they can really build those technologies that we take for granted today. And that was quite a long time ago. So being in tech wasn't something I kind of planned to do. I'd never seen myself outside this space. And then moving out of investment banking when there was the whole technology bubble, I moved into business process outsourcing, another application of technology in efficiency, both in government and the private sector. Very interesting, seeing how the money and the technologies were being applied to make the life of the UK citizen better. So looking at how government talks to their citizens using technology. And that was quite early on, over 15 years ago. I did take a break to be a mom. So bringing technology and kind of motherhood together, which I always found that motherhood was the most difficult job I've ever held. I have 3 kids. At some point, I had 3 under the age of 4. So I really kind of pushed myself. I've never done anything in half. So bringing those two things together to kind of realize Mum's World was a very natural step for me. I don't think I considered whether or not I'm doing something new or innovative. I just felt like I was in that stream, and it felt very, very natural. And the fact that we couldn't use technology to make the life of a mom better was very disappointing for me. So it was very natural for us to have Mum's World. And it's who we are. And both me and my partner come from technology. My partner also was in an internet startup prior to Mum's World. So it's a very natural place for us to be and to remain.
For those of you who don't know, Mum's World is sort of our main platform in the Middle East for buying and shopping all things mums. It's been, a fantastic help and, like you said, a time saver for many women, and is growing, really well. Recently, you had a very successful exit, I believe, as well. So I think it's been an incredible journey from you, all the way from building through to exiting that, and it's a great story for people to hear about. We'll talk more about your exit and the challenges that you had. But I'm going to introduce Ivana Ivanovatoleti, a Global Chief Privacy Officer, Visiting Policy Fellow, Oxford Internet Institute, author from London.
Thank you. And actually, yes, I am in London at the moment, although I live in Frankfurt. I'm here in London, but since September, I left London for almost 15 years and moved to Germany. So it's really great and inspiring to hear Lina talking about a journey. And I think it's similar to like very many women across the world. Some of us, we didn't start with that in mind. Life took us by surprise in many different ways. And I actually grew up in Italy, and I didn't mean to sort of get into this world of artificial intelligence, privacy. That happened much later. But actually, what I was always passionate about is human rights. I was always passionate about geopolitics and the world. And actually, my attraction to data and technology came exactly from that angle, because I realized quite early on that there is really nothing as not neutral than data and then technology. Because sort of we live in an era where we're saying that sort of data is the answer to everything. We live in an era where we say technology will solve all our problems, but too often these systems are designed by men. We still have a lot of bias in for example, artificial intelligence systems. So in my journey into this world of technology and artificial intelligence and data, stemmed for the idea that I want more women to shape the norms and the policies around technology and around artificial intelligence. Privacy has always been a great interest of mine, but not privacy as very much as sort of an individual right, which is very important. It's important for people to have that sense that what they're doing is not known by everyone, because that changes the way that we inhabit the world. But for me, privacy is a great collective value. So the data is so important that we've got to protect it and safeguard it. And I think we do need to change the way that we look at privacy if we want to harness data. And we need to, and it's really interesting that we live in a world where now, you have 120 privacy legislations being enacted all across the world. But again, this is a space where I would like to see more women, because we really need to, we've got a lot of women in privacy law, but privacy is beyond the law, it goes beyond the law. It's about technology, it's about culture, it's about, so I have to say that my passion for sort of this world came from the understanding that technology influences so much of our life. And because it is like that, then it's so important to have diversity and women and women from any background and every background to really shape this future, and not leave it to sort of people who are all the same, or to a few sort of large tech companies, chief or execs to decide, So to me, my journey into technology was very much driven by my passion for equality and diversity. And I always encourage women, especially with the women leading in the AI network, to come into this field regardless of their background, because we really need people from every background coming into a field that is increasingly shaping the way that we live, interact with each other, and the way that we organize all this is going to be so crucial for the decades to come.
You're absolutely right. And it's really interesting. Something you said, the data is neutral. I didn't give my background, but I'm in venture capital mostly now, and I advise a number of Silicon Valley VCs, including the largest, fastest growth venture builder, Antler, and Brink, into this region. And one of the things I was having a discussion with the founder this morning of Antler, and I said to him, how has Antler managed to have 34% of their portfolio companies are either run by or have a female co-founder, which is a really unusual statistic for those of you who don't know, because only 2% of venture capital money around the world goes into female-founded companies. So that is a really, that's a big skew. So I said, how do you do that? Is that engineering? And he said, no, it's because Antler is built on proprietary data and technology, and therefore it is completely unbiased. So if you remove the bias, look what happens. So I love when you said it. Absolutely, data is neutral, and we need that to underpin everything that we do, which is where, this whole shift towards Web3, blockchain will really aid us in this move towards transparency. Finally, but absolutely not least, we have Dr. Tamara Sumbul. I'm really excited to have you join us, not only because you represent another big market that you've been born and grown up in, which is Saudi Arabia, one of the key markets so focused. As Dr. Sumbul is the medical director of clinical informatics, John Hopkins Aramco Healthcare University, and she brings a wealth of expertise also from a very different angle in tech.
So thank you for the introduction, and a little bit about me and starting off. When I was way more younger, many years ago, growing up, I've always loved computers and working with computers. Unfortunately, and maybe fortunately for me, I guess learning opportunities also in Saudi Arabia at that point were, especially for ladies, were a bit limited, and a lot of these technology fields were not available. So growing up, I think I loved working with people and helping people. So pursuing a career in medicine sounded like the right thing and the thing that I really wanted to do and was passionate about. After graduating, I guess I kind of gravitated into what I like more, and going back to using technology and how technology can empower what we do as clinicians. So going back into management of information and leveraging technologies to improve the things that we do as physicians on a day-to-day basis, and getting smart healthcare. So that's a little bit about me and my background. I'm also a mother. I have 3 kids. So having them after going throughout my career, and it is doable. I think a lot of people think that it's too much to have a family and pursue a career not only in medicine but technology, but it is definitely completely doable, and I think they give me the strength, the passion to do what I do each single day.
Do you know, it's again fascinating. Yesterday I was at a panel talk discussion I was doing, and it was about VCs for good. And we were talking about, how VCs have this incredible way to facilitate this change. So bringing more women into leadership, bringing more women generally into the industry is key for us to change that. And a lot of the women came up to me and said to me, how can we get into, how can we get invested in it? I said, there's nothing that you can do that's any different. But the problem is that as women, we continue to underestimate ourselves. We continue to think that it's not possible for us to do so much. And when we look at the statistics, it shows that women will only apply for a job when they think they meet 100% of the criteria. However, in comparison, a man will apply for the position when he meets 60% of the criteria. So, and men tend to overpromise, overestimate, and underdeliver. So one of the things we were talking about is she said, we need, and the other part of the research demonstrated that we need more of these stereotypes. We need more female stereotypes to show us it's okay to have 3 kids. And actually, the multitasking skills that we build as mothers with 3 kids are incredible. Like, they are irreplaceable skills that make you so much more efficient and a much better operator than any male could ever possibly be, really. And so I think it's just about us talking. Sorry, Nina, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may just add a very small comment there. So I'm a mother of 3, so I'm on 6 or 9 mother groups. So I'm on work groups, but in the Middle East, we use WhatsApp to kind of congregate communities. It's a very big thing. So, my kids play sports, so all 3, I have 3 sports groups, 3 school groups. And the culture of the group, really, I was actually having a chat to my daughter about it, is that there's so much anxiety. So yesterday they launched the GCSE choices for my youngest son, and the conversation was such high anxiety. Women just don't take so much risk. It's not about the man thinks he can do it. He's just evaluation of risk is so different to a woman. GCSEs have been running for years. I didn't understand why there was so much anxiety on the group. It's just an exam that's been running for years. There's no reason to worry. The child's still at home. But the anxiety levels, 300 anxiety messages later, I was thinking, just let them do it and fail, and whatever happens, happens. But I think it's not being able to push yourself. It's about your perception of risk. So how can a woman basically change her perception of risk and failure to take on more risk and fail more often?
Absolutely. I think that's absolutely the answer. Exactly. And it's changing our perceptions and also seeing and believing, right? Seeing more women, bringing out more women, which hopefully podcasts like this will do. I recall walking into one of my first big pitches when I was trying to exit my first startup. And when I left and I found out they didn't invest in me, they said that they didn't invest in me because I had mentioned that I had a young child, and that they thought that a woman with a young child was, not really a suitable person to be able to continue the growth and scale up of that company. When I joined my last position not so long ago, unfortunately, I faced the same where I said, look, I'm a single mother and I have to pick up my daughter from school because I don't want someone else picking her up and coming home and not seeing her. So I'm happy to come in early. I'm happy to be in at 7 a.m., but I will be leaving at 2:45 or 3 o'clock, and I'm happy to go back online. And of course, very quickly, it became evidently clear that that was not suitable for the work environment. And this is the reality, which is unfortunate, and particularly unfortunate post-COVID, because post-COVID, the majority of the world has realized and has softened on that and started to allow people to have that flexibility and change. I know, Dr. Tamara, you want to say something. I'm gonna.
Yeah, no, I totally relate. Especially with career-wise, I think it's those stereotypes and breaking through those stereotypes and that glass ceiling. Basically, the stereotypes is that she's going to be busy with her family. She's a mom. Her priority is her kids. She's not going to give it at work. Meanwhile, probably if they read the statistics, women multitask, and they're probably going to give 120%. Meanwhile, somebody who's there 100% of the time is only going to maybe give us 70 or 80%. So I think that is the part, because we are perfectionists and we want to do everything and do it to the best that we can. I think that's something that stereotype. A personal a thing that happened to me earlier on in my career, as I was still graduated, been working in informatics for a few years. So a job opened up. So I went ahead and applied for sort of what I thought was a leadership job. So it was for overseeing medical education. So after applying, I went to the interview. So one question I asked the interviewer was, so where do you see me in 3-5 years from now if I do end up taking this job? And he said, well, you're a smart cookie and everything, and I see you as probably somebody's assistant one day. You will not believe. I was just holding my tears back. At that moment, I was like, seriously? You're seeing me as, rather than seeing me somewhere else, are you seeing me as somebody's assistant someday? I was devastated. And that was actually a turning point in my career. And I actually declined that job. Everybody told me I was stupid. How could you let such an opportunity? I thought, if I'm going to work with a boss that's going to come and this is the way they view women, I was not and that was a turning point for me to think of breaking through those stereotypes, breaking through that glass ceiling, and if I'm able to do it, I'm also able to pave the way and mentor others in doing it. Because I think having that mentor up there or that advocate for women is very hard, but you need to find it. A lot of times you will not find a woman up there who would be advocating for you. So you're going to have to find that person that is willing to advocate, to have you there, and you as a person, not as a woman, and not an extra privilege, but just you as a person, because you can do it and probably do it better.
That's so true. And this is something that, again, I've talked about time and time again. And it is that we have to be that tribe for every other woman. We need to pull all the bells and whistles to help every other woman. And unless we come together as a force for that change, we cannot create that change. So it's, you know, extremely well said. And Lena, for you, I'm sure you had your own various challenges aside from bringing up 3 kids under 4 and building mom's wealth. But for you, maybe you could highlight to us what 1 or 2 of those biggest challenges were.
It's quite interesting because I think, you know, being one of like 30 engineers in a room of over 400 engineers in college, I don't remember feeling like I'm the only woman in the room, although, you know, and then when I moved into investment banking, we were very few women on the floor, and going into meetings, many a times there'd be, you know, 30, 40 men and you're the only woman. I don't remember specifically feeling out of place. I don't remember feeling like I'm the outlier, although the men were always more vocal, but somehow I come from a very female-dominated family. I never distinguished myself as a woman. We're all individuals. But just as a mom and thinking about all the stories I hear and how people are struggling, I mean, being in Mom's World, we're 70% women, and we hire lots of moms because for us, we need to know the consumer. So having a very mommy, strong marketing team is important. So being a single mom or a mom in Mom's World is an advantage, not a disadvantage. So actually, I've been super lucky that I don't feel, you know, singled out, although we've had some investors who've made comments about us being full-time moms. It's their problem, not ours. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we do think maybe the valuations maybe were impacted. We can't quantify that, but we do definitely feel that the valuations are impacted. But I come back to my position as a mom, and I think we are in a super powerful position as moms. It's not that we need to empower other women. We need to actually make sure that our household and the culture that we have these little citizens that are going to lead the world tomorrow. And if we don't start with the right culture at home, we have that power. And every woman has that power. The way we refer to positions, how we talk about jobs and success with the male and the female members of our kind of home is super important. So just watching what you say, because you're also programmed to have stereotypes. And unfortunately, although I'm a working mom and I'm a single mom, sometimes I say things and I catch myself, and I need to be careful because I have been programmed with the stereotypes, and making sure both the boys and the girls understand they're just people and they're not female or male is very important.
Yeah. And that comfort, exactly what you said, Lena, I think just treating people as individuals, not as you're a female or you're a male. It's just that individualism. That's what makes them comfortable in their own skin, right? And like you said, it's their problem if anybody has a problem with it.
Yeah, I think, just to add to that, Dr. Tamara and Lena, in our cultures, we've had a huge issue for many generations, right? Especially with how we bring up our boys. And I think that has impacted our society. One of the statistics I remember reading was saying that only when men have daughters do they suddenly start to realize the importance of having more females in the workplace or investing in more women, which is just strange. Like, don't they have spouses? Don't they have mothers? But there is something wrong fundamentally at the top end of the chain. So, I really encourage all mothers of boys to shift that dynamic. And I've started to see that happening. It's okay, for the boys to be softer, but teach them everything and make them softer, because we need softer boys actually who will grow into softer men with more kind, empathetic values and who understand what it is to be a woman. So, I applaud definitely all mothers of boys. Thankfully, I have a girl, so I don't have to deal with that, which is a blessing, thank God. So I'm going to take you to the next question just so we can cover a little bit more. One of the questions that's, been asked a lot is, and we've covered it somewhat, but how do you think that technology is opening doors for women and revealing new opportunities? It's open for any of you that want to take it first.
So I think one of the things, and COVID has been wonderful. COVID had shown you using technology that you can run the family, have a million kids, and still be super successful. And no one's going to question that. And, this whole cloud technology, the ability to work from anywhere, the ability to communicate with people, remote teams, the fact that today's jobs are actually online, the majority of today's new jobs or new world jobs are online, makes it super easy for a woman to excel. You know, office politics is reduced because it's now just about the work you produce. So you become an individual. So when you produce work online, the whole office politics, you know, men are buddies, you know, you hear that a lot. Men are buddies with men, men go drinking with men, and therefore women are excluded. That goes away. And then it's really purely your ability to market yourself, your ability to present your work and what you achieve, which is exactly what you need to evaluate individuals on. And I think it's been wonderful that you helped us get there.
Can I add a couple of things? I think it's, I have mixed views about this question. I mean, I'm always a bit polemical, but I want just why, the reason why I'm saying this is because technology is improving, you know, as you know, better than me. You know, it's like we have all sorts of things at the moment. But I want to always ask a question, which is the following. Everything is becoming more and more smart, right? You can do the shopping at the same time on your phone, at the same time that you're having organizing something else on your computer. You can have a smart fridge that tells you what to buy, or you can have, and yet the life of women is not becoming easier or less multitasking. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it feels that technology is doing a lot and is giving us the opportunity to, for example, as we said, you know, just, you know, doing so many things at the same time. But it's not really, I do not feel in my daily life that at the moment, this is simplifying my life. What I mean is, at the moment, I have to be even more Wonder Woman than I used to be before, because at the moment there is no excuse, because I can do the shopping online at the same time that I'm paying the bills online. And it feels, you know, is that really that is making my life easier? And I think us women from around the world asking these questions is really, really important, because it takes us to the core of the problem. Who is technology developed for, and who is technology developed by? And this is really, really important, because, you know, technology is fabulous and is great. I mean, and the fact that there are so many women, for example, in artificial intelligence, privacy and ethics, the field I'm in, is not because we don't like technology and we want to talk about the risks. It's because we love it so much that we want it to work for everybody. And sometimes it's not the case, because sometimes we have algorithms that are biased, algorithms that discriminate against women, algorithms that code and software into software code existing discrimination in society, and we don't want that to happen. But I think the relationship between women in tech is not that easy. And this is why we need more women in technology, because, you know, there is so much that is out there, and especially with sort of datification of society, everything turning into data and everything in the smart cities. But we've got to be honest and ask ourselves, you know, how much is our life as women getting better, and who decides what that better is? And actually, do we have a risk that there are even more demands placed on us? Because, for example, what I've seen across the globe is this working from home due to the pandemic has been good, but has also meant for women that a lot of women have been working from the kitchen, and therefore going from the desk to preparing the meals. So not everything, I think, is so straightforward when it comes to women in technology. And this is why I think we've got to not just get more into tech and programming, but also going more into the leadership position of shaping the future of technology and what we are going to use technology for, and always say, what is the impact that this is going to have on women in my community, women in my country, women in the wider world? Because sometimes the way that we judge things, again, is male-driven. You know, we judge if something is good or bad, but who is judging that? You know, who is making the assessment that something is actually positive or something? This is why we need our voices really, really heard more and more, so that we can ensure that we have the tech in place that is actually there to make our life better.
Yeah, Dr. Sumbul, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, well said. Definitely want to be part of shaping it. The other area that I think technology has improved is access to education. I think this is one of the biggest areas that actually, and we saw it with the pandemic. So technology has really embraced access to, for women to access podcasts, to access learning, to access and even universities and all this stuff. So I think that's going to help spread and empower. It allows them to do it even within their own home, so they actually don't need to go out, leave their families, and they can do it in their spare time on their own. So I think this is one of the areas that technology has really helped.
Yeah. I mean, and that leads us really well to the next question, which is how can we reach out to young women to consider a career in tech, and how as individuals do you think we can play our part in helping them to develop that career? And of course, things like this, no doubt, the education will help, but if there's anything else that you'd like to add.
So, for definitely, education would help. Also, having, like we said, those leaders, having more women leaders out there in technology. Exactly what Ivana just said. It's being out there, spreading it. Hey, designed by us for us. So, seeing more of those leaders out there, those figures that they can and that they look at and say, "Hey, I want to be doing this. Oh, look, she's doing this. We can do this." So I think it's important to have those figures and that leadership out there with more women visible in those areas.
Completely. And in terms of the current market, are there any opportunities that you individually have seen opening up, and why do you think it's more important that we have more women? I mean, we've kind of also addressed this, take up more positions in tech, and seek to redefine the tech industry. Again, I think our gender lens bias removal, and for lots of reasons. I think we've talked about it, but if there is anything else you think in particular in terms of opportunities that you see opening up that we could perhaps raise awareness on.
So I'm going to put one of the questions that leads on from some of the discussions we've been having, which is around opportunities. Are there any particular opportunities that you're seeing in the market that we could talk about, maybe raise awareness on, and that we could possibly encourage more women to start looking at?
Yeah.
So I think let me grab this. I think one of the opportunities is, if I look at the journey, I have a girl and two boys, and they're very close in age. And if I look at my daughter, I'm an engineer, so there's no reason why she wouldn't want to be an engineer. It doesn't seem like a big barrier for her. I'm in technology, so she's always in my office. They've worked in every single department of the company. They've done everything from packing boxes to doing content to working on UX in the site. So they've been like our little, extra hand. So there's no reason for any of the three to behave any different. But the boys have been more they're more technology savvy. They choose their choices in GCSEs, very clearly define them to take a different path to her. She's taken a more kind of healthcare wellness path. She's into biology and psychology, so she's chosen that path without any nudge from me, although I'd like her to come to kind of follow in my footsteps. Now, that does not mean she cannot impact technology, and she cannot impact the way technology is being designed. If we look at the wallet, the household wallet today, we believe that the woman controls almost 70% of that wallet. The man does not control the wallet. And at the end of the day, money talks. So if you want to drive certain behavior for companies, you spend your money in a way that drives that behavior. So if you are a woman, you're not interested in technology, it's not something you want to do, you don't have to do it. You can be a nurse, you can be a doctor, but just be mindful of how you spend your dollar. Because at the end of the day, money talks, companies listen to that. When people design behavior, when people look at what consumers want, they will always look at the source of the cash. And I think we don't need more women to be in technology. We just need more women to consciously spend in a way that drives the behavior they want, the results they need.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right. And if none of you want to add anything further to that, I want to take that actually to a next question, which is, we all have experience of our young children, and we've talked a lot about how we've got them really actively involved. Even my daughter, I mean, my early e-commerce platform, similarly, doing UX, graphic design, and packing, and she was just 5. So actually, when we look at the stories of the kids who are building, NFT platforms, making hundreds of thousands of dollars, you see a pattern that most of their parents were in tech, and they introduced them into tech, and that's why they've developed that love or that knowledge or that experience. So do you think as parents, there's more that can be done outside of our home? Like, are we not doing it right at school? Or what else would you recommend for parents to be doing to encourage their children, whether it might not be to get them into tech, but just to expose them to that? And do you think that's important to help to change the numbers much later on?
I think that the whole education or schools are capable of transforming themselves, let alone transforming our children. We need to park. It's a big leap for them. I think education is lagging. They're really struggling unless they revamp curriculum. It's like the only thing that hasn't arrived. Every other service, every other organization globally has arrived in this century except education. So I think we all have to take on that responsibility. Unfortunately, that's my view. I think it's a personal responsibility of communities and parents to make sure that the children arrive and understand technology.
Yeah, I think it's super relevant. I was just going to say, there's an app that I've been working on with a big team, and it's a venture build process that we're going through, and it's the Educational Metaverse, and it exactly does that. It strips out the existing educational model, which was built for a post-industrialist society, to create people of certain careers, which are no longer serving the world that we live in. We're in a new world. We're going to have new jobs, new careers. Everything is changing. And it's really important that the educational system and the curriculum changes. So hopefully, I think tech, in a way, again, through EdTech, like we mentioned, is going to be the biggest challenger to that, and hopefully will help us to disrupt that. Dr. Tamara.
Yeah, I think it's very important to future plan for the future generations to have the appropriate technology that fit in with the jobs. But I mean, from a physician mother, who wanted to have at least one of her kids be a doctor, and none of them wanted. So I have 2 engineers. I have a computer engineer and a mechanical engineer. And my son is more philosophy, law. So nothing to do with the mom. So I think it's very important to raise the kids without any stereotypes, to do whatever they wanted to do, right? So not to force them into any particular gender sort of career, but let them choose themselves. So and then on the other sides of building our cities and building our education in countries, to make sure that they're aligned, they're future-proofed basically, and they're aligned with the jobs that would be there in the future. Ensuring counseling in schools and we have enough college counselors to sit and talk with these teenagers, about what they want to choose for their life. And it's not an easy choice. A lot of them are at that 17, 18 age when they really don't know what they want and they've not had enough exposure. So I think maybe pre-exposure, more college counseling, I think is needed. And then providing equal opportunities, of course, to all.
I really agree. I mean, I was really thinking, Tamar, when you were speaking, I think you're completely right in terms of the bringing up the children without this sort of the gender stereotypes. It's just really, really important, and it's not an easy one because society presents us with a lot of those. I mean, I am dealing with sort of 2 generations because I have a son who is 17 and a daughter who is 5. So, so I'm seeing not only 2 different genders, but also different age and also different sort of a different age into growing. It's like the world is different. 15 years have changed since my 17 years has changed since my son was born, and so it's also different sort of. And I think the world that they live now in 10 years has changed a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I think the society is. I can see this with my daughter is as stigmatized as it used to be in terms of gender, and when it used to be for my son, you know. So my son grew up between Italy and London, and my daughter is growing up in Germany, so different reality from where you're based. But you know, I remember, you know, for example, the Lego technique being, you know, something the boys were playing with. And Lego technique is the more engineering, you know, sort of side of Lego. And now I've taken the active decision to build Lego technique with my daughter. But, you know, it's a decision that I had to make in a very sort of conscious way to say, you know, we have to do these things. You know, we need to what books we buy or what things the kids are reading. Because as you say, Tamara, you know, we have to bring them up in a way that they're able to break free from the stereotypes that there are in society. I remember, you know, years ago, a campaign that we had to do in the UK on a shop called Amley's, and where there was, it's no longer the case, but at the time, there was, when you walked into the shop, it said, boys' toys and kids' toys. And we were like, excuse me? I remember getting really cross when my son was little, because there was a particular toy, a Lego toy. And there was this Lego Friends that was just launched. And in this Lego Friends, there was a small house that you could build, and there was some, you know, girls and female features, you know, and I thought that they were scientists, this female feature, but no, they were, you know, serving drinks by the pool, making drinks and then serving drinks by the pool. And so we had to do at the time I was in the UK, there was like loads of battles with a women organization that I was in at the moment, saying, you know, it can't be like this. The reason why I'm bringing all this up is because, Tamara, you're completely right. I mean, this sort of breaking free from the stereotypes is absolutely important. And in my book, An Artificial Revolution, I really talk a lot about women's approach to technology and how we got into the technology and how things have changed. You know, years and years ago, for example, coding was very much considered like knitting. And it was very much a secretarial thing. And that's why in the 40s and 50s, there were so many women I'm talking about the West here, so many women into coding. Because it was considered secretarial, it was considered female, and it was very, sometimes people compared it with knitting because of the precision. But then in the 70s and 80s, when big data came about, and when people understood there was a lot of money to be made out of it, suddenly it became very male. And you could see these photos of the managers all suited and booted and all male. So the life of women is very much intertwined with the economy, with so many other things. So if you know, so I think it's really, really important that we understand this bigger context as well. And I completely agree. And we allow our boys and girls to break free from all of this. And to do that, I think, you know, Lena is correct. You know, you can't just rely on education, but at the same time, you can't just rely on the families, because not everybody's got the same family. And so we have to rely on community. And I think we also have to rely on networks that we are able to build between us. You know, we are in 3 different parts of the world at the moment, and in different parts of the world, and yet we are talking. And I think now more than ever, and especially with all this going on in the world, we really need to have these links between us women. And we all experience different realities, different parts of the world, different cultures. But we've got, I think, to really create this sort of networks between us where we really support each other, even on how to really help our kids, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult.
Okay. Can I just comment on, Ivana, thank you for that. That's pretty amazing. I didn't realize the historical context of coding. That's super interesting. But I'll tell you what's even, like, just to build on that, one of the things, my daughter's doing the Women's Day speech at school, and I was helping her. And one of the things I was pulling out for her, because I was telling her one of the biggest problems of women is that we don't write enough content. So our point of view is not heard, and it's our fault. Yep. It's nobody's fault. If we really want our point of view heard, we better write it. Men write, and the content written by men is, you know, a lot bigger than content written by women. So I pulled up a report for her that talked about how women don't have the credibility to write history. So it's really interesting to talk about how women actually were the original coders when it wasn't sexy. And it's such an interesting point to bring out. So writing history of where women we're leading an industry or we're first to market for an industry is really, really important. And showing that we can take a risk and we can be the first, movers in an industry is super important, because maybe coding in 5-6 years time doesn't matter, because systems will self-learn and you don't need people to code. But the idea is you need to prime women to take a little bit more risk and fail, whatever is coming our way, whatever the next thing is. And the only way we're going to be pioneers is if we take those risks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Absolutely. And I mean, it's our history is always intertwined with many other things, It's just, and this is like really, really fascinating. And that's why, that's why it's, one of the things that really shocked me, if you look at academic outputs during the pandemic, for example, across the globe, during the pandemic, the academic outputs of women fell. And that is because women had to look after the home a lot. And because the breakdown of schooling, of sort of the nurturing side of society, nurseries and all of that, meant that women had to do a lot of the care in a home again. And that meant that a lot of women, and Lina, you were saying the voices, the less women could be involved in this, in writing, and the academic output fell down. So, for example, to be very, very frank and brutal, we in the West as women, we have a lot of reflection to do. We've gone into a society of sort of monocultural families, sort of mononuclear families, when, that we saw as a liberation, but in reality, we've ended up with no support, with men changing not too much, still not doing enough for the childcare, still not doing enough for the cleaning. And we've ended up in a situation where, to an extent, you could say we shoot ourselves in the foot, because we wanted to be all independent and live in a mononuclear family, and then we end up with no support. And then when the pandemic hit us, there was no generation older than us to help us and support us. And we've seen the limits of that. So we do have a lot of thinking to do about it. And this is why I find it really important that we need to shape a way of being women and growing in the tech-driven world. And we need to learn from each other and to do it together and across countries and culture, because I had to question a lot of my thinking in recent times, because I was like, well, it's not particularly working. And I can see this, with tech, that things continue to be designed by men. And I feel that this is the time that I really need to join forces across different areas of the world and as women try. So how do we together try and shape some of the norms about the future? And maybe some of these things also require global norms. I mean, think about artificial intelligence. It's an amazing thing, but at the same time, it's got threats. It's got big risks. So is this the time, for example, to build a sort of global framework as we've done for other things? For example, we have a United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Do we need a digital declaration? Do we need, do we need to update the current ways that we, and can we as women, for example, lead on that together? Is that something that, because what I wouldn't want to happen is as Lina was saying, not having enough voice and therefore not updating the current infrastructures and frameworks to help us and protect us, and in the digital data-driven world we live in.
Ivana, to your point, there's this, so there's a global, for healthcare at least, there's a global digital health partnership that has 33 countries. Right. I'm on that task that group.
I feel safe now that you're there.
Yeah. So it's nice to have, when you have that framework and you have more women on it, we have to be out there and seen. My worry is, especially with the pandemic now, a lot of women, so the number of women that a lot of people left the workforce, right, during the pandemic, but the number of women coming back, it's going to take us around, I think, another 18 months if we're lucky, and if we recover and people come in. because of all the restrictions with the nurseries and the closing and the opening, I think a lot of women still do not feel comfortable going back to the job. And maybe Lena probably sees it more than anybody with such a large workforce on her side that are women. So if there is, if it's still, they can't find childcare, they can't find schools for their kids, and they're going to find it very hard to confidently go back to work and be there. So I think, again, it's the support for each other that we need to have to empower each other to get everybody back where they were, and even open up more opportunities in the future.
Wonderful. Before we round up, I think to a last question for you all. Many of us were in LEAP in Riyadh last month, and it was an incredible, eye-opening experience. I think to see the way that Saudi Arabia has shifted its mindset towards technology, and the way the people of Saudi Arabia kind of came out in their drones. I think they expected something circa like 40,000 people, and we had like over 100,000 people that came in. So it was incredible. It was eye-opening. It was electric, actually, in terms of environment. And what I want to ask you all is, aside from what we've seen now with LEAP, do you see any other markets that are really exciting that you think have had this kind of high growth, or are having this kind of high growth? Or where do you see the new markets of opportunity? Maybe it is Saudi Arabia.
Well, Saudi Arabia, coming to LEAP was absolutely exciting. Yeah. And it was, there is a buzz, isn't there, in terms of technology, and also the great buzz to see sort of women and emancipation and freedom. It's incredible. And I grew up in, and as I said, I grew up in Italy for the sort of feminist mother. And I remember my mom, when I was young, using to say, "Well, you'll never be free if women in other parts of the world are not." And so, and I do feel still that we've got a long, long way to go across the globe, a long way to go, and especially in women's educations and access to some parts of the world. But, to see such a vibe, it was incredible. And I think, and I really think, the way that the world is going, it's an interesting one, because on technology, you have, for example, the European Union, where I'm based, which is very much sort of finding its way at the moment. So you have finding its way in between sort of fast-growing tech countries like China, and sort of with a sort of different approach to for example, data. And then you have countries like the US, which with a more commercial and private sort of state-led, and then private-led. And then you have Europe trying to understand, where do we sit? What do we do? Can we do what we've done with the general data protection regulation? So basically, can we drive the world by regulation, which I'm not sure is going to work. But there is one thing that I would like to say, though, which is that we live in a world where there are things that are absolutely, in my view, like important, like the ability to share information between countries, a global approach between nations, globalization. And these are important things, because that means that and I think from a women perspective, we know that these things are important, because we know that freedom in one's homes, is important, obviously, but we also know that we as women, we want to see sort of, emancipation happening everywhere. And one thing that I'm experiencing at the moment in the field of data, for example, that has got a massive impact on innovation, is that to an extent, we are conflating data protection, which is very important, with data protectionism. So what is happening is that there is a huge drive in many different jurisdictions to what is called sovereignty, right? And then data has to be held in one country, and we don't want to share, and we do not want to. And I would like, and sometimes I think, yes, sovereignty is very, very important, and we want data to be safeguarded. But at the same time, we like openness. We like, it's nice to have this sort of sharing of information and flow of data with trust and all of that. And to me, a lot of the questions that you were asking, Raman, it's how to me, it all comes down to how are we going to shape the world from technology standpoint? Is it going to be a race, a global race, as we're seeing at the moment, where technology, artificial intelligence, and data are very much geopolitical issues, and as much as data localization, or are we able to lead on a way where in a way that technology benefits society, benefits us all, and what role can we as women, especially women leaders, encouraging other women to become leaders? What role can we play in this to ensure that technology is not just a race, but is also something for really the common good of everyone, and especially women across the world? I mean, to me, that is sort of very much of a challenge that we should, as women leaders, take up.
I just have a small comment, and it's quite a controversial one, but one of the things that I am very careful about is making sure that we don't just categorize women leaders as women at work. And as moms, we represent moms, and we do encourage that moms choose. We don't take a stand on whether a mom should work or should be a leader, should have business, or lead from her community. Some of the moms at school that sit at home and read every email and go to school and make sure the curriculum is followed, I cannot live without them. They lead my direction in every decision I make to go to school. When I have a problem with school, I'll call them first. They are my authority on the community, and I never want them to go away. They make, they're part of that village that makes my life better. And I don't want them to feel like they're not adding value. They're adding tremendous value, although they're not getting a salary. So the question is, I don't ever want to lose. There is an Eastern thing that you're a daughter first, you're a wife first, you're a cousin, you're a sister, you're all of these things, and then you're whatever you do at work is your business. We don't care. You're a neighbor. Nobody really cares what you do at work. And you historically, it's very Eastern. It's also in India and the Middle East, that you don't boast about your work, whether you're a male or female, because as a man as well, you're a husband, son, and you're a cousin before you are a CEO. And if you fail in the other duties, your society doesn't kind of value you. And I think we need to keep that. 100%. These values are wonderful. It's what's your impact on your community trumps your impact, your monetary impact. Yes, maybe your monetary impact can help your community, but definitely if you make money but you don't impact your community, then there's really no value in your success. And I just need to understand how us as women, as the kind of the givers of empathy, can maintain that and not lose that by kind of drawing us too deeply into an unempathetic working world. It's not a man's world. It's just an unempathetic working world.
Totally agree, Lena. And just taking it back to Romana's question about, well, first of all, it was great to host you all here in Saudi Arabia, in our country. Definitely in terms of other markets, well, at least for Saudi Arabia, I'm really, really proud. They set a vision for 2030, and I think women empowerment was like top on their list. So, and we've seen some of the things that have happened. I mean, over the past at least 2-3 years here in Saudi Arabia, from being able to drive to our first marathon this weekend, hopefully happen, to fantastic events like we saw with top class people, including top class women like you guys at Leap 22. So I think Saudi, there's a lot more to come. I see from my country. Maybe I'm biased, but I think as we move forward towards that Vision 2030, hopefully seeing more female empowerment, seeing more advances technology-wise to get to where we really want to be at 2030.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Ivana.
No, I was saying it's great, and I mean, I wish I could be running with you, and it's fantastic.
Next year.
Yeah, it's the next year. Yes, it's fantastic, and I also think, you know, what you were saying, sort of getting more women in business and more women. I think it would be good. As something Lena said really struck me, and in terms of sort of the cultural and the philosophical element of all this, you are the impact that you make first, and this is really, really important. So I would want to say is that, you know, we want to have more women in business because we want to change the way the business is run. You know, we want to have more women in business because we really want to change the way that the leadership is seen. I mean, leadership cannot be the way that we've seen it so far. I mean, it cannot be that, you know, you have to be present, you have to do things, you have to be in a certain way, you know, you have to work 20 hours per day. That it cannot be the leadership model. The shouting maybe, or, you know, dressing in a certain way or doing certain things, you know. These norms, they've been set by people that were not us. So I think it would be really good to say we want to be, you know, more in business and more high up in society so that we can change it, really.
So I'll say, Ivana, something. I'll draw a direct parallel when your kids have exams, and, you know, the culture at home, and this is something, you know, maybe it's 80% of homes, you basically count the hours your child puts into his exam. So you're actually breeding a culture at home where saying FaceTime is important. He hasn't left the house yet. It's nothing to do with his boss. He's still at home. You're like, oh, you didn't study 6 hours. You're telling him indirectly FaceTime matters. No, he can study 1 hour effectively and do the same work. You're not telling him the output. So the culture at home is already breeding that, putting the hours. And then this whole notion of the bullying culture at work, you see it at home, like moms do it. They're like, oh, you got a bad grade. My love and evaluation of you as a human being is based on the results. Already his first boss, his mother, taught him these values. I really honestly think it's a buildup of the community. And if we look at every part of the community, we'll find that this comes a lot earlier than going to work, unfortunately.
Yeah.
By the way, I grew up with a culture of, you know, how did you do in your grades? And I'm very proud that I love studying. That doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do.
Thanks all. I think it's been a wonderful discussion. It's been so nice to have, you know, everyone from a slightly different market, a slightly different background also. You know, we've been able to hear about how the change is happening in Saudi Arabia, here in Dubai, obviously from Lena and myself, and Ivana from both perspectives, Germany, Europe, Italy, and now in London. I think we've got like a lot of things that we can take away and for people to start thinking about. But the most important, I think, takeaways from today's conversation are that we need to be out there more. More women need to be out there. We definitely need to change those stereotypes. There is so much opportunity out there, and it has to be up to us to go and grab that, grasp that. There are no barriers. The only barriers are our imagination. You can do as much as you can imagine. The world is really our oyster, and I implore and encourage all of us as mothers to continue to teach our children, expose them, and to encourage and support every woman out there to seek opportunity. Thank you all for such an engaging, exciting, and insightful discussion. I hope this sets off really tech for good. Tech is actually not for good. Tech should be for great. And everything about what we do is for impact. So I'm really excited about this setting off a new wave of impact. And then look forward to seeing you all soon in Dubai or in Saudi.
Inshallah.